So I'll start. Uh, what UX really is, breaking common myths of the UX field. So what I wanted to talk about here in this podium is that uh, many of us, people who are in UX field, people who have joined, they keep hearing some myths from other people, and some of the people and some of the myths also affect the way we work, we approach UX, we take the way we take design decisions. So my talk is around that. So what are going to be the myths? Myths are uh, commonly used statements or practices used by people which does not quantify as a UX practice. So I will talk about that. So why talk about it? Because very less people are talking about it. So we can practice better UX, take more informed design decisions, and provide better experiences. And like I said, I'm not looking for trouble. Uh, I'm just quantifying these myths as how I understand that. For some of the audiences, they might not be myths. Some of them might not may or may not be a myth. So I'll start. Myth number one: UX is UI or UI or UX, and UX is not UI. You would have heard a lot of people saying I am a UI UX designer or UX UI designer. First of all, according to me and broadly how most of the UXers will agree with me that it is not UI UX designer, it's a UX designer. We we all of you must have seen this example where this illustration or example where they say the first one is UI and the other one is UX, where the first one helps you. First one is not a good UI. I mean, first one is a UI where it just helps you get the ketchup out, while the other one is real UX because it's upside down and it kind of getting the ketchup out is easy. I would say no. Both are UXs. I will talk about that later. You would have seen this as well, where uh, the path which is carved out is user experience, it comes as user experience, and the path which is made smooth path, which is considered as UI. Now let's go to the first example again. The first example, where they say it is UI, does it not have a user experience? Because taking the ketchup out is an experience. For the second up, where they call it a UX, does it not have interface? Like both the bottles have interfaces, right? And both the bottles have experiences of ketchup coming out. What you can say is maybe one has a better UX or other ones doesn't. Or it can also, and again, it's very subjective. For some people, first might be the better UX. For some people, second might be the better UX. So please stop using these examples and stop seeing these examples if you are seeing somewhere, and please question them. Even this, right? Where is he walking without an interface? The carved out part is an interface. Here, even there is considerably less user experience, but there is interface is still there. We still see a path which is in interface, right? So the first one, again, the first one may be a good experience for some people who want to take a shortcut. For the second one is maybe not a good experience. People who want to take shortcut and save time. But think about it. People who cannot walk properly, people who are in wheelchairs, for them, the second one is a better experience, right? So none of them is UI or none of them is UX. Both are UX. Some works for some people, some doesn't work for some people. As simple as that, right? Myth number two: UI designers are not UX designers, and UX designers are not UI designers. Many times we hear people saying, "I'm not a UI guy, I'm a UX guy." There's nothing like that. According to me, uh, designing a wireframe is also a UI job. And understand when while designing user interfaces, understanding users, understanding business goals, user goals, is very important, and that again a UX job. So there is nothing called UI is equal to UX or UX is equal to UI, or I'm a UI designer, I'm a UX designer. Everybody is a UX designer. It's just that somebody would design interface, somebody would not design interface. Somebody would only talk about, worry about user needs and doing designing usability and stuff like that. But the other person might be highly inclined towards interface designing. Doesn't mean they both, doesn't mean one is thinking about the UX and other is not. Everybody is thinking about experiences, everybody is thinking about users, and everybody has to. So if you come across someone who is a UI designer, don't think of him or her as only UI designer. He is a UX designer that is inclined towards interface, and the UX designer that doesn't work or may or may not work on interfaces. Myth number three, product designers are senior to UX designers. So you would have seen this everywhere or many places that people say that I'm not a UX designer, I'm a product designer. I would say that that's not the case. Whether you are a product designer or you call yourself a product designer or a UX designer, you would end up doing the same thing that the UX designers do: understanding users, understanding business goals, um, catering to UX user needs, making experiences easier for users. Everything comes as part of UX design. Also, the product design. Some people call themselves product designer just out of just consider that as a term and not as something which is much better, higher, or matured than UX designers. They both are same. uh, these days, most of the people who are in UX field or people who are in product companies, they call themselves product designers. But that doesn't mean they are not UX designers. Or people who call themselves UX designers doesn't mean they cannot design products. In this example, if you see, uh, user experience is on the other side while product design is on the center. While that should not be the case. User experience designer should also take care of what is business strategy. They also should have to take care of visual design. They also have to learn what is brand, how my brand is, and provide the brand experience. So you, whether you are a UX designer or a product designer, whatever you call yourself, you have to encompass everything that is related to providing a very good experience to the user. I've also seen this comparison, which is very bad according to me, because they say that product designer is more of a problem solver and technical profession guy, while the UX designer is not a problem solver. It is more of a creative and critical thinker. I don't agree with that. Whether you are a product or UX designer, you are problem solver. Whether creative or not, we'll talk about in the next slides. Myth number four: UX is a creative field. Many people think that, or many people must be telling you that, oh, you are a creative guy, you are a creative guy if you are a UX guy. I would say no. uh, I would say that most of the people who are in UX, they are a scientific, they are following a scientific practice, uh, understanding user goals, understanding business goals, catering to users is all, everything is a science. It backed by science. We meet users, we capture the data, we gather insights, we quantify or qualify researchers, and then we come across with the data points to put into our interfaces. So it is a science and not a creative field. I came across this example, this definition, which I found really helpful. Like UX designers combine creativity with the scientific method to meet user needs. Therefore, creativity is not part of the UX design, not artist is part of UX design, not artistically, but as a process to solve a problem, right? So it's we can't call ourselves creative designers. We can call ourselves UX designers only. We use creativity, but to solve problems, not to design buttons, because even buttons, colors, typography, everything comes from some amount of user interface or some amount of psychology study. The fonts that we use, the colors that we use, they are backed by psychological research. They are backed by psychological studies. For example, red and yellow colors are used to denote hunger. So all the McDonald's and KFCs of the world are in red and yellow color. Myth 5. Many people think that business knows everything about users, and you would have, as a UXer, you would have come across this in your organization in day to day, saying you don't need to meet users. Business knows users. Business would come to you saying, say, we know users. You ask us, don't go to them. Save time. I would say no, that should not be done because a business will have different perspective of the user than you have. You would empathize with the user in a different way than the business would do. You should always rely on first-hand information so that you can actually understand what the user's mental model is and try to answer the problem with the good experience. And it's very important to own user research. Myth number 6, which says only we know UX. Only UXers know UX, other people do not know UX. I would say that's not again true. Everybody who are into everybody who is into uh, business of serving digital mediums or rather I would say visual mediums, they have to understand people. They have to understand people's subjective ideas as well, because we are into visual medium and everybody has the right to say something, and everybody has a right to give their solutions and suggestions. So you would say that if everybody can take a design decision, what would we do? So I would say yes. UX is everyone's job, but a UXer's main job is to defend design decisions for the sake of the user. Everybody can contribute to take and design decisions, but is UXer's main job to defend it and also uh, drive the team towards taking an informed design decision that's best for the user and also for the business. Myth number 7 is UX is a job. We think that as a graphic design or some other design, or let's say as a uh, product manager or as a developer, all these are jobs and UX is also a job. I would say no, UX is not a job. UX is rather a practice. Like you practice to become a doctor, and then you practice more. The same way you study to become a lawyer and then you practice law. You practice law. So y- understanding UX as a practice is very important because it's a way of life. It's not a job. So when we shut down our laptops at 6 p.m. or whatever time and then go home, we don't stop being a UX designer. We don't stop being a designer. Whether we are seeing traffic lights, whether we are using a cab, or whether we go home, go to someone else's house and see their interiors or see the furniture, we always perceive user experiences and we always in our brains come out with possible solutions to solve problems that we find. We can never switch off our user experience thinking or design thinking mind because it is a practice and it is not a job. So that's why it is very important to understand that we are always UXers 24/7. Myth number 8, UX is a standard practice. Like being a lawyer or being a doctor, you have a black and white. It's a standard practice. There are a set of rules, standards, but UX being a new field and also is being in a field to serve the user. Like they say, customer is a god. Whatever user needs, we have to provide. So whatever methodologies are supposed to be followed or employed, but whatever rules we have to bend in order to serve the best possible user experience to the user, we will use those respective methodologies and create those standards. So that's why it's not there is no set standard or set rule. Like for example, the framework that Wolfram just explained to us is a framework that works for them. Doesn't mean that works for everybody, or doesn't mean one framework works for the other and other frameworks work for the other. The framework that we choose or we create has to best choose has to best fit our product design methodologies than it fitting all so one size fits all methodology. Myth number 9, UX can be taught. UX, according to me, UX user experience cannot be taught. But again, I'm not against people who teach UX. Even I teach UX. But what What we teach, what we normally teach is the methodologies and not what user experience is, because there is an empathy which has to be cultivated, and empathy cannot be learned overnight. Empathy has to come with a practice, and it has to be practiced. It will only come with building more and more empathy with the customer, understand them better and better day by day, and then keep providing better user experience and keep bettering a user experience one day at a time. Many people think that research is only researcher's job. I would say no. Research is everybody's job. Everybody has to understand the user needs. Everybody has to go and meet users in order to understand their mental model. It's very important to understand what user wants, and is always important to rely on first-hand information than to rely on a second-hand information. So whether if even if you are a UXer and you have in-house research team, please accompany your researchers in the research methodologies, research activities, and try to understand what user wants, and not just rely on second-hand information. Try to talk to users and see how they work, learn their behaviors, learn in which environment they operate, and so on and so forth, in order to again provide a user experience that they can emotionally relate with. Number 10 is UX is equal to CX. Many people understand think that customer experience is also same as user experience. No, while user experience is I mean it's served in order to provide an experience to the user. Customer experience is a broader term. User experience caters to, let's say, for example, we are booking a cab, and then on the cab, the way we behave on the app, the way the cabs are shown, might be considered as a user experience. But the way we behave with the cab guy physically, right? Let's say a cab guy uh, talks rude to us, then it's a customer experience problem. It's not a user experience problem. Again, I would say that both are similar, but user experience is more dealt more towards the digital experience, and customer experience encompasses overall customer's experience. Uh, like it has advertising, it has organization design, it has values, it has sales, it has product delivery, it has even customer research, which goes a little bit beyond the user research. So I would say please understand that CX is a different form than a UX. Customer experience can be UX, but user experience cannot be customer experience always. Okay. So myth number 11, great knowledge of design tools is equal to great UX skills. You would have seen these kind of job titles which would say proficiency with Figma is very important, or proficiency with Adobe XD or Sketch is very important to become a to be hired at our jobs. I mean at our company. I would say please don't pay attention to these kind of things, because like like owning a great camera doesn't mean you are a great photographer, but having a great photography skills means that you are a great photographer. Same way, just be able to use the design tools nicely doesn't mean you are a very good designer. You should The main part here is to understand users, have empathy with the users, and provide a very good experience, and do whatever it takes to provide the user experience, a great user experience beyond tools. Like I have seen people who design very good wireframes on pen and paper, on PowerPoint. I've seen people designing wireframes on Excel as well. So that doesn't mean that they are not UX designers. Many people think that I also come across people who say that can you teach me Figma? I want to become a UX designer. I tell them no, you don't need to learn Figma to become a UX designer. You have to develop empathy. You have to cultivate design thinking methodology, design thinking mindset in order to become a user experience designer. And that will only come with the practice. And I would say a passion to empathize with users, and interest of that. I will say that I'm done, and I'm at the last point of my talk, which is great looking UI means great UX. Now, this myth is very important because many times we see, and I mean, non-UXers, they see good looking apps and they say this app is very good. I love the experience this app provides. Uh, what I would say is what the app designer using here is, and I would say what the user is suffering from here is the aesthetic usability effect. If you've heard of that, what aesthetic usability effect does is that anything that is designed aesthetically nice, it's considered to be a great user experience, or it's considered to be a very usable product. So you would have seen many designs or many apps which are very good in design, but they have a big navigation problem. There's a big problem of understanding where to go. So these apps might be highly visually designed apps, but they are not. They cannot provide good experience. So in order to provide good experience, it's very important to uh, build an experience that caters to users' need and that takes care of all their pain points and helps them uh, perform their tasks with limited amount of difficulty. Yes, and obviously, a great user experience has to meet with a great visual design in order to create the entire package of a user experience that not only works great but also looks great in kind of user can feel emotionally great while talking to or while interacting with the system. So these are my points. And like I said, that these are not according to me, and these are not standard way of drawing out the myths, but these are myths according to me. Some people may or may not agree to some of them, or some people may agree to all of them. Some people may not agree to any of them, so all are welcome. But if you are learning UX, or if you are not a UXer, or ag- again, even if you are a UXer and you agree with me, please take care of these things, and also please preach these myths to people so they can stay away from myths. They can provide better user experiences. They can be better user experience designers. They can stay relevant in the jobs, and also they that it changes the way they practice UX and take informed design decisions. Thank you. My name is Kamaksh Gangani, and I'm available at these handles. I work with JSW1, a steel company in India. And if you are in India, I'm really looking for some great UXers to join my team. So please talk to me. And any questions, please talk to me.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing your kind of case study and examples there. I really did like a couple of the points. I'm sure they hit home for a lot of people out there, particularly when there's multiple asks being made of the same
Fingers
question.
crossed. Yeah.
Great. So if anybody does have any questions, please do pop them into the chat boxes on whichever platform you're watching it on. But just to get started, one of the things that always comes up is particularly in small teams. So I get like a lot of the myths. It was that we're trying to almost overload too much onto one person, but on a small team, you do have to overload a lot of asks
Yeah.
to one person. So, what's your advice for people out there if they are the single designer slash UX slash researcher on a team? How do they try to educate people that it's quite a lot of work?
Yeah, good question because I also have come through, I mean, in my entire career, I also come through these situations where uh, people just consider you as a person who understands colors. But it's very important to tell them what do you do, and you do that. You should do that by, as a designer, you should do that by showing them methodologies. Like, for example, create a framework that Wolfram has created, right? And tell people that this is what my practice is, this is what the process that I'm going to follow. And my process of providing a very good experience encompasses learning about users, talking to users, uh, learning what business goals are, talking to business people as well. It's not only product manager's job to talk to business, it's also a designer's job to talk to business as well, in order to understand what are the goals they have, what are they trying to understand, what are they trying to fulfill, what are the strategies they have, what they want to achieve by the new development, uh, and also it's very important again to be a cross-functional guy within product, tech, and also the business uh, in order to weave that one user experience. So it's not only answers users' goals, also solves problems, also solves business problems, and also looks great at the same time, works great because of a great development. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it's always going to be a challenge, but it's a good approach.
Yeah, it is always challenge for everybody. I was thinking first I was thinking that it's the problem only in India because people don't understand. People have tendency to jump to solutions rather than understanding problem, like Wolfram rightly mentioned. But then I realized that this is a problem which is everywhere. It's a global problem.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just one thing I want to jump in on. You mentioned about the tools, like they have to be great at Figma or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Now, the challenge, if I jump to the flip side of trying to recruit somebody, what other signals could you use? So if I ask for a photographer and they have a top of the range camera, it's a signal to me that, okay, they probably know what they're talking about. Um,
yeah.
what signals would you suggest then if you're saying that tools aren't the right signal? What signals should people rely on?
Good question. So I'm not saying that tools are not a good signal. Tools are good signal, but not only tools. Many people get, or I've seen many recruiters get misguided by people knowing Figma very well, people knowing Sketch very well, but they do not know how to talk to users, how to understand insights from the user research. So it's very important. So so for recruiters, my advice would be uh, don't look at uh, uh, the tools that people have learned, look at what kind of problems they have solved. Also, when you try to uh, show yourself as a user experience designer, don't talk about tools that you know because a tool can be learned in 4 days, right? But what cannot be learned in 4 days is the way you practice empathy, the way you understand a user, the way you kind of empathize with the user, understand their mental model. All has to be practiced, right? So all of this is very important to understand what kind of problem the person has solved in order to understand that person is a good designer or not a good designer.
Excellent. Yeah. So, do you have any? I guess the last one. What would be a question you would ask in an interview to try to get that nugget of have people those skills?
Yeah, my a simple question I ask is, tell me a great problem, design problem that you have solved. Tell me, tell me a story of solving a great design problem, starting from how did you understand the problem, how did you get the problem, how did you understand the problem, what stakeholders did you go to understand the problem in a nutshell? Uh, how did you approach the users? How did you go about understanding the problems of the users, their goals, at the same time problems of their business goals? How did you marry the two goals? And what were your solutions? And how your solutions impacted what you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a great last bit, like the final
Yeah,
impact to make sure that
yeah,
that
that's very important.
great. Well, that brings us to time. So, thank you once again for sharing the myths of UI and UX.
I hope people follow that.